All right, so now we're going to attach what's called the shock cord to the body tube. And let me tell you what that's all about. So this is the example of the finished rocket. Oh man, the video's a little grainy, but we'll go with it. So this is an example of the finished rocket, and we know that eventually when this goes up in the air, we talked about this before in club, there's going to be an explosion of black powder that comes along with the engine that pushes this cone out. And then from here, the streamer comes out, which slows it so it doesn't crash into the ground too hard. It slows it down when that flaps in the wind on the way down. And eventually, if I keep pulling, we get to a point where it just kind of stretches. This cord stretches out. But it's got to be glued inside of the tube to make it stay. That's what we're going to do today, just that part. We're not going to tie on the streamer. We're not going to put on the nose cone yet. We're not ready yet. But we are going to attach and glue this shock cord, which is an elastic cord, which absorbs the shock of the nose cone deploying. And another reason why it's important to have a little bit of give to that and something that's a little springy material like elastic. One thing that happens is sometimes it'll deploy late or early when the rocket's going very fast. So it needs to have a little bit more give to it. All right, so let's get started. For this step, here's what you're going to need completely. All right, so for this step, we're going to need first of all, you're going to need your rocket that's up to this point. Got the fins filleted in the last video and the launch lug. So you got your rocket. We're going to need something to mark the body tube. Again, you guys can use a pencil so you can see it better. I'll use the Sharpie. So you don't need that, but you can just use a pencil. So we have our shock cord, which is included in your rocket kit bag. And you need your instruction manual. If not, you're going to have to cut a piece of paper that will do the same thing. Okay. Now, before we get started, let's take a look back at the instructions. All right, so we look right up here, and the first instruction is to cut this out, and then we notice how this is set up at a slanted angle. I'll show you that in a second. And we glue and we just fold it over, and then what we do eventually is we close it all up in a big wad of paper, glue, and rubber cord or elastic cord, and we glue it to the inside. See how it's dotted? Whenever it's dotted, it's like they're showing you what's happening inside the tube. And we have to make sure that it's an inch deep. And then, because if we don't put it in far enough, this nose cone won't have room to fit in there. See how this nose cone has this part that fits inside of here? We've got to have that way back here, a full inch at least, so that we can, so that it will fit without the nose cone. What we don't want is to glue it right at the end, because then the nose cone will not fit. And you'll have to redo this whole step, but I don't know how you're going to get that out of there after the glue dries. Okay, so we need that. What else do we need here? Of course, we need glue, and we need scissors to cut out that piece of paper, and we need a ruler to measure it. So let's get started. So it told us that we need to measure at least 1 inch. So I'm going to let's move some of these other things out of the way until we need them. I'm going to take the ruler, and you can use a pencil. I'm going to use a marker so it's easier for you to see. So again, we're not on the fin edge. Forget that. We need the front of the rocket where the cone's going to go. And we're going to measure. See, I put it right at 1 inch, and I'm marking it at 0. You could do it either way. Or, of course, you could do it 0 it at the end and mark it there, but I got it there. But, oh, I changed with that. There we go. So basically, I've got this little mark, and that's going to, when I'm putting that in there, that's going to give me an idea of when I've gone far enough. Okay? And again, let's look at that again. Let's look at the picture on how it goes. Well, let's wait until we have it ready to go. Okay, all of this kind of needs to be done while the glue is wet. You can't do part of it and then put it in and glue it in an hour later. It's got to be wet so that the thing is still flexible, so it bends to fit the inside of your tube. Okay, so you have to do this whole video all at once. Don't worry, it's not too hard. Okay, so see this part right here? I'm going to open it up, the instruction booklet, and we're going to cut this piece out. Again, if you can see about how big it is, so if you lost this or you can't, or you screw it up somehow, you can just cut a piece of paper out of something else or out of another part of the instruction book. And if you don't know how big it is, look at the hole of the one you already cut out that got screwed up. You can kind of help. That can kind of help you decide. It's not too fancy. It's just a piece of paper that we're going to fold 3 times, and we're going to glue our shock cord inside of it. So it's not It doesn't have to be exact. So I could trim this up if I want to. Not that important. But I'm going to. That's a little too much, so we're going to get rid of that. Okay. So let's take a look back to the instructions. Again, you know, it's a good habit. Even though I've done this many times, I'm still going to check back with the instructions to make sure that I'm going to do it correctly. So let's take a look at that back over here. Okay, we cut it out. We put it so that the cord goes across 3 and 2 at an angle, but it stops before it gets into zone 1, doesn't it? If you look right here, the cord goes at an angle and it starts at 1, it goes across 2 and out the back of 3. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to put a puddle of glue on 2, fold over 1, then put another little bit of glue in 3 and fold that over. It will still be wet and still be flexible. Then we're going to make sure that it's at least a minimum. The worst part of it would be 1 inch away from the tube. And we've marked our tube to show where that 1 inch is. We're all ready to go. Don't mark the tube. You know, you want to get that done beforehand, before you start having glue and all these things. You know, and because you're going to get glue on stuff, it wouldn't hurt to have a paper towel handy for this step. So, okay, so let's get back over to the display, or the document camera. Perfect. Okay, great. Now, so we saw that in the diagram. I'm going to move this down a bit so you can see it a little bit closer. And readjust my zoom and focus and everything. Okay, there it is. So you saw that it in the picture there, it doesn't go into zone 1. It starts at the edge of zone 1 and it comes off at an angle like this. It doesn't go straight on there. It comes off at an angle. We're ready for glue. Kind of rolled a little bit, but you'll see. I'm going to make sure that's flat and not twisted around. Just put a little bit of glue on there. Doesn't have to be really super thick, but you know what? Put plenty on there. That's fine. Enough to cover it pretty well. And keeping it at an angle. Remember, it doesn't go on straight on. We're going to glue that down. Okay, I got a little glue on the working mat here. I got to clean up. See some glue squished out. That's okay. That tells me I have plenty. That's what I want. I want it just kind of gluey in there. That's funny, gluey. Okay, so now I'm going to put on the next bit. Here, I got a little bit on the nozzle. Probably no big deal, but that kind of bothers me. I don't like that. Let's open that up. Now I'm just going to give a generous, doesn't have to be too much, but just make sure it gets on that. And now we fold this, where that other line is, we fold that closed just like this. Whoops. And there, it's still coming out at an angle like we had talked about. Okay, got a little glue in my fingers. That's why we're talking about maybe having that. And I still have some of the water from the previous video. I just did that a little bit ago. Let it dry. Uh-oh, it's come up. Need to hold that down for a bit longer, huh? Flatten that out. There we go. Okay, that should hold down pretty good. It is elastic, so it wants to pop open. That's fine. Okay, so you see how it is. Let's take one more time. Again, even though I've done this tons of times, I've built a lot of rockets, I'm going to double check and triple check. So let's go back over here. So what we're looking at is right over here. And it has to go an inch. Most of it's going to be beyond an inch. Like all of it's going to be beyond an inch. And then that will give plenty of room for our nose cone to slide on in later on when we do that, whether you use their nose cone or the 3D printed one that we can make. Okay, so you can see how they have it on their finger. So it's like this. They put it on their finger. And now what they do is they put, so see, oh, whoops, I'm sorry. Let me change my camera. There we go. So here's what they do. Here's how they have it on their finger in the diagram. I'm going to make sure that stays closed. Maybe I need a bit more glue there. Okay, there we go. So like this, and then we're going to put, then they want you to put glue on top of that. That's plenty, and I'm going to spread it around so it's very even. Whoa, that fell. Sorry. Just be careful with this before, because until the glue's dried up, this is going to be kind of fragile. It's going to want to pop open because of the elastic, the springiness of that elastic that's in there. So see, I have a good amount of glue kind of smeared across there. Okay, now this is hard for me. Some of you guys, this is going to be easier because you have smaller fingers than I do. clean off my pinky with some water first. My pinky's about the best bet. That's usually your smallest finger. So some of you people are a little smaller than me. You're going to be able to get that in there a little easier. If not, I might have to use the end of the pin to push it in and push it up. Okay, so there's the mark. So now this is going to go inside, but basically it needs to go at least that deep when I glue it to the inside. All right. So let's do this. Now remember, we don't want to get the glue all over the tube before it gets where it needs to go. So I'm going to keep it away from that top edge, and I'm going to push it in until it is at least that far. Try not to get too much deeper than that. That's about just the right depth. So I'm feeding it in there. You're just going to have to take my word for it. I don't have the camera at the right angle, but that's about right. And now your finger, you might just use your pinky finger to do this. I can't do that. My pinky finger is too big. I'm going to push up. So now I'm pushing it up against the tube. I don't want to bend the tube. I don't want to break anything. And there it is. It's against the side, but now it's wanting to come out. So remember how that was wanting to spring open? I'm going to push that down. My cord's getting a little twisted. I'm going to use this to push it down. Oh boy. I hope I put enough glue in there. Okay, now it doesn't want to pop up as much. I'm just using that to apply pressure. And again, you can see that it's in there plenty deep enough. That's at least an inch deep. The cord's obviously going to come out this way more than an inch, but we can push that and move it and fold it out of the way. And again, I've really pushed it down. Not enough. I don't want to bend my tube. That's what we don't want. We don't want to bend the tube. But basically, we've pushed that down, and we're not going to pull on it. We are definitely not going to grab it by the cord, the shock cord. We're going to leave this alone to dry. I would put that side down, and with the shock cord gently just flowing out, and we're not going to twist it, we're not going to touch it or mangle it at all. I'm going to leave that alone, and there we have it. We have now installed the shock cord. Now, from here on out, what we're going to do is we are going to work and focus on the nose cone with 2 future videos. One of them will show you how to do the nose cone the regular way by the nose cone that's included with your kit, which is, similar to this one. I've painted this one, but this is the one that comes with it. We'll show you how to put that together. Just takes a minute. And then in another video, we'll show you how to make a 3D printed nose cone, a custom nose cone that is any size or dimensions within reason, any size or dimensions that you want. So next one, we're going to move on to the nose cone. And then after you decide whether you want to use the factory nose cone or the one that you 3D print and make, then we'll tie it all together. And then finally, we'll add the streamer to it. All right. Thanks, everyone, and I will see you.